Yo, what's happening, everybody? Welcome back to the Gridiron Drive. I am Anthony Correnti, joined as always by my co-host Peter Trena, and today we're kicking off a brand new series where we preview each position group of players set to hit free agency in 2025. So if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Not going to want to miss any of these that are coming up. And if you're listening on your favorite podcast platform, go ahead and make sure that you're following the podcast or subscribe to the podcast. You're going to want to catch them in audio form if you're not hunkered in front of YouTube or if that's not the easiest for you. So, Pete, how we feeling? We ready to dive into 2025 free agents?
Yeah, I've been ready for about 3 weeks now, if not longer, especially with my Giants needing a quarterback, and who knows what this draft will hold for all of these teams. But yeah, I mean, over the next few episodes, we'll break down the top free agents at each position, starting with the most important one, obviously the quarterbacks, like I said, and who's poised to cash in, who's looking for a fresh start, and who's hoping to hold on to a starting job.
Yeah, it's an interesting group for sure, and it pairs with a quarterback draft class that we talked about last week and is already seeing some of those big names head back to school. So we're going to get some players moving around, that's for sure. So let's go ahead and dive into the 2025 quarterback free agent class and what these names might mean for teams and the market.
All right, I'll start us off with Russ, Mr. Unlimited Russell Wilson. Listen, man, in Denver, it looked like it was rock bottom. You know, he looked cooked. Then he gets to Pittsburgh, and he started 8 games so far. He's 152 of 235 passing, almost 2,000 yards, 13 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, passer rating of, I think, 105. That's pretty good for 8 games.
Yeah.
You know, the question is, does he have enough left in the tank to justify a starting gig? Or, you know, we're looking at the twilight of his career. I'm looking at Spot Track, and his market value is basically a 2-year, $80 million contract. And
which is crazy to think about.
But it kind of makes sense, though. It's like,
oh, it does.
It's like a pro-rated Daniel Jones contract. You know, that's what mid quarterbacks are going to get, 30 to 40 million. You know, what do you think?
I almost feel like Pittsburgh is getting to a point where they're going to have to keep him.
Yeah,
like on a deal like that, if they can do some sort of 2-year fully guaranteed deal, or maybe they can, you know, save themselves some money somehow. Look, I know he's going to be 37 next year, but I just don't know what their alternative is, right? Like they're winning football games. They're a pretty good football team right now. And I just don't know that they have the luxury of creating a hole for themselves. Like I know they were still winning some games when Russell Wilson's backup was in there to start the season. But are they really are they going to roll that dice, right? Because then when Russ got healthy, they just plugged him right in. Like there wasn't any thought about it. Once the calf was ready, they were like, okay, Russell Wilson's the quarterback. I agree with what you said. Like, is how much is left, you know, is it the end of his career? I mean, I think it's undeniably the end of his career. Like we're getting at the end. But you could certainly do a lot worse if you need a guy for a year or two. And I think that's the position the Steelers are in.
Yeah, I'm not giving him more than 3 years. You know, I'd give him 2 years max. I'd throw as much up front at him, you know. And 2 years, 80 million, honestly, I'd probably do that if I were the freaking Giants, man. I mean, it's just like, well, maybe not the Giants. They're not ready. But the Steelers are ready. And they should be looking to be at the top of this market, whether it's Russ, whether it's a guy that we'll talk about in a little bit. But do you want to pivot to Justin Fields? I'm going to spit out some of his stats.
Yeah, because I think they pair nicely. Like, because they're not both going to be back, right? Like, just given the need at quarterback, I think there's a pretty good shot that Justin Fields is going to at least have an opportunity to start somewhere. And even if somebody doesn't come out, you know, sign him in free agency and say, you know, Fields is our week 1 starter, he's going to have a chance to compete for a job based on some of these teams that need a quarterback.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and he's got the mobility, and somebody will fall in love with that. I don't know if they'll sign him, for a starter. But I mean, he threw for almost 1,100 yards, 5-to-1 touchdown interception ratio. He wasn't exactly bad in Pittsburgh.
No,
It's
he
just
was
that,
playing pretty clean football, honestly.
yeah, it just wasn't like outstanding. How many games did he start? Looks
He
like 6
started,
games.
yeah, I think it was 6.
Yeah, I mean, and he probably had almost 300 rushing yards. Listen, somebody you could do a lot worse. And speaking of worse, Spot Track, they got him at a 1 year, about $9 million contract, and I think somebody will pay him that. Sam Darnold got $10 million this year. Drew Lock got $5 million. I
Yeah,
think somebody will give him $8 million.
would not shock me at all. Wouldn't shock me at all if he got a little bit more than that either. Like,
Yeah.
I won't be shocked if he gets a deal where it's like 1 year and incentives can push it to 12, 14,
Right.
something like that. Just because I think that's what the market will dictate. Because if Russ goes back to Pittsburgh and, we'll get to him in a little bit, but Darnold either stays or goes off the market elsewhere, the way that this quarterback class is shaping up in the NFL draft, say Cam Ward and Shador Sanders go 1-2, now what? If you're a team that like really
Right.
needs a quarterback, like, just looking at it from my fan perspective, if we're living in the universe where, the Jets move on from Rodgers, there's a lot of things I would hate more than giving Justin Fields $9 million for 1 year just to see what you get. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
And
I think he'll be on the move, and it wouldn't shock me if it's somewhere in that, $8 to $12 million range. But I also wonder if I don't want to say like going to be selective about where he goes, but I could see enough teams being interested that like Justin Fields could have a little bit of a market.
yeah, I think he could go to either a team that doesn't get, Shador or Cam, or a team that gets him and doesn't plan on starting them, week 1. So yeah, I think he will be selective because I think he will have a market. And yeah, I think, he could be one of the hotter commodities in this free agency market because honestly, the draft is a little underwhelming with a couple of these guys, not declaring for the quarterbacks, not declaring for the draft.
Yeah, for sure. I 100% agree.
All right, let's pivot to bridge quarterbacks, redemption stories here. I got Sam Darnold. What a resurgence in Minnesota. I mean, we saw like a little glimpses of it in San Francisco, right? But it was just like, is this just Shanahan doing his thing? But I mean, he's pretty much revitalized his career with the Vikings. They're 12-2. He's thrown for 3,500 yards, 10th in the league, 29 touchdowns, 5th in the league, and 11 interceptions with a passer rating of 104.9. So he's still, a little reckless with the ball, but sometimes you need to be that guy who's going to be confident, and he is definitely that guy who is confident in his arm, and sometimes too confident. But listen, his performance suggests he could be more than a stopgap at this point and potentially earning a starting role elsewhere. I'm looking at the Spot Track for him. What you want to guess what his projected market value is?
In average per year?
Sure, but what do you think his contract they're saying his market value is?
Guess that they're saying his market value is 3 years, 140.
Close. They're saying 4 years, 143, basically.
Okay.
So 35
right.
per.
I gotta be honest. I think if he leaves Minnesota, I think he gets more than that.
Yeah, I mean, well, just looking like Baker signed the 3-year, $100 million deal at his age 28 season. Sam will be 28, when he hits the market. With inflation and, Baker, is he better than Baker? This year he is.
Yeah.
So Baker's AAV is 33 million. Sam should he'll probably get close to 40, which is crazy to think about.
Yeah, it is crazy to think about. But that's also part of the reason that like I'm interested to see how Darnold's process shakes out because I'm not sold. Number one, I'm not sold that Minnesota will be in a rush to move on. But I'm also not sold that if a bad team comes calling and is trying to give him the bag, and Minnesota has an offer that's like a reasonable offer, but maybe not as much money. Sam's done the I've played in a bad situation thing before, and
Yeah.
it, not that it's the same amount of money, but he had third overall draft pick money. It's not like he was a 7th round pick or something like that.
No, he's made
So
65 million in the NFL. He's all
yeah,
right.
yeah. So not saying if some team comes out and says, "Oh, we'll give you 4 for 140," and Minnesota only says, "Okay, we'll give you 3 for 100" or something like that. I don't know. I think I could see him taking into account like the system's good, the coaching's good, the talent's good. Do I really want to risk it? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I've done the flip side of this coin. And that's what I'm really interested in seeing. I think the market will get crazy. Like I think teams will be in on him, but it still wouldn't shock me if Minnesota remains like firmly in on him and decides. The thing I keep coming back to is they have, like you said, he is going to throw for over 30 touchdowns. He's probably going to get to 4,000 yards or really close to it.
Yeah.
They better be really sure that JJ McCarthy can do that next year.
Yeah.
If they're really ready to just let him walk. And I'm not saying JJ McCarthy definitely can't do that, but this is a very good team ready to win right now.
Yeah.
I think you have a hard time in that locker room. Like you better be certain that you're getting that same kind of production.
Right.
That's why it wouldn't shock me at all if they're really trying to get kind of aggressive to keep him there for, 2 years and slow play it with JJ a little bit.
I think we mentioned it privately. Well, you mentioned it to me privately. It's like, how does a locker room feel? Like,
Yeah.
I'm sure JJ is a great guy, and he's probably, Jim Harbaugh guy, probably great leader, but he'll be 21, and if Sam is, takes them to a playoff win, maybe maybe a Super Bowl berth, it's going to be really
hard to
tough to
back down
tell.
from that.
Yeah. It's going to, a 30-something-year-old vet, hey, we're going to the kid now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I 100% agree.
All right, let's pivot to this next guy here. Personal favorite of mine, Mr. Jameis Winston. Could eat those W's all day, man. Listen, he's played 11 games. He started 11 games for Cleveland. He's 181 of 296, 2,100 yards, 13 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. That is such a Jameis stat right there.
Yep.
That's his career, volatility, basically. Do you think he can find himself, starting in the right situation, or has the league kind of moved on from him as a starter and he's just kind of a top tier backup?
I think that's probably where it's at. I don't think anybody's going to give him like a locked in starting job.
Yeah.
But I think you could do a lot worse as a backup that needs to either be like a stopgap type bridge guy or, like a hold the fort for a developmental type rookie. So I don't know. Like he's weird because he's, like you said, there's always going to be the volatility.
Yeah.
I don't think he's worse than Deshaun Watson. That's for sure. But I don't know. It's just, again, it's like there's such need with so many of these teams and not a surplus of them worth early round draft capital in all likelihood that I could see a world where he's playing meaningful snaps next year for somebody.
Yeah. I could see a situation where like somebody drafts, a quarterback and they're not ready week one, kind of like the Sam Darnold situation, but, not because of injury and just like the Drake May situation, basically.
Yeah.
And, he gets a couple starts and depending on where he goes, it could be good for him. It could get some wins, stack some W's, eat some W's, but, yeah, I don't know. He'll probably just get a, couple $1 million deal. And I mean, he's just great. I mean, I don't know him personally, obviously, but he just seems like such a great guy to be around in the locker room that like, if you have the cap space, you just got to sign this guy as your backup.
The league's better when Jameis is playing football.
Yeah. Oh, it's a beautiful thing. Do you want to talk about Mac Jones? He's a free agent, but I think he's kind of past, right? Like,
yeah, like I think he'll latch on as a backup somewhere, like
Sure.
I don't think he'll be out of the league or anything like that, but I don't think anybody will be banking on him in the same light as like a spot start or like a bridge starter. I think he'll get brought in somewhere as like a backup. And it wouldn't shock me if it's somewhere where he gets brought in as a backup and the guy ahead of him is like a really established guy. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like he's just there as a backup.
Yeah, that's
Not
what
like
he did this year, for
Yeah.
Trevor Lawrence. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, let's pivot here to veteran depth and role players. I'll start off with Daniel Jones, my guy, formerly my guy, not my guy anymore. Sorry, Daniel. He started 10 games for the Giants this year. He was 216 of 341, 2,000 yards passing, 8 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, and he got 265 yards on the ground with 2 touchdowns. So he's got the legs, but he's often injured. He's just, I don't know. There's something wrong with him. Maybe somebody else can fix him. Maybe the Giants ruined him. I don't know. I don't, honestly, I think it's fair to say that he doesn't deserve a starting job, but somebody, I don't know. What do you think about it? Like, do you think somebody will pay him some kind, not like crazy money, but I don't know.
I could see it just because, again, like what I come back to is just the amount of teams that will need a quarterback. Or the other thing I come back to is like, okay, so he's latched on in Minnesota right now.
Right.
Does he end up in a place where, like, I'm just using this team as an example, like another team that has like an established starter, but somebody like the Rams, you know what I mean? Where it's like, all right, solid offensive mind. We're not really banking on him. Maybe we can mold what's there a little bit. Something like that, where he has I don't think it's going to be good if he gets rushed into playing starter snaps for another team that's not very good around him. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I think the best case scenario is he latches on somewhere as a backup with a staff that can try and mold what's left of him or mold what's there from a talent perspective wise. I don't know. The Rams could use developing somebody behind Stafford, Like,
yeah.
Not
They're
saying
not
it's
gonna be in
necessarily
position,
him,
yeah.
but
Yeah, they won't be in position to draft somebody high, so that's not a
Yeah.
bad fit. Yeah, he needs to just be in like a one read system where like everything is given to him and he doesn't have to think too much, because when he just has no pocket presence anymore and just
no.
gets rattled too easily. I don't know if that's just a New York quarterback thing at this point, but all right, let's pivot to this last guy here, Jacoby Brissett. Dependable backup, reliable backup roles, essentially. I don't know what more to say about Jacoby. He's been a backup for, it feels like 10 years now.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he did well in Cleveland a couple of years ago. You could, view him as a solid backup or a bridge starter, mentoring some of your young guys. Honestly, I could see New England holding on to him there. But teams
wouldn't shock me.
Yeah, teams love having a guy like Brissett in the quarterback room, though. It's like, he'll get another. The question is, will he get another chance to compete for a starting job? I don't think so, but he's just a guy that you like to have in your quarterback room for sure.
Yeah, I agree. Like, the starting talk is over, but you could still do a lot worse as a backup. Like, we minimize and forget how many bad backup quarterback situations there are in the league.
Yes,
somebody will pay him, a not insignificant amount of money to be a backup quarterback again. Whether it's New England keeping him or somebody else that needs more depth at the position. So won't be like a buzzy, sexy kind of signing, but he'll be on somebody's roster. And in all likelihood, with the way players get hurt, probably play some games next year.
Yeah, for sure. It seems to be trending that way. All right, how about you want to talk about the future market impact of these guys? Any potential fits? Trade implications, draft implications. What do you got? What are you thinking? I mean, I could pull up some of these quarterback needy teams' cap space.
Yeah.
What
I'm looking at is just from the draft lens of it. If the top two teams go quarterback, like say it's Vegas and the Giants, that holds true, and the top two guys come off the board. And we've played this game before, but then after that, it's like, based on the current order right now, Tennessee's at 6. They need a quarterback.
Yeah.
Cleveland's at 7. They need a quarterback. The Jets are at 8. They need a quarterback. New Orleans is at 10. They need a quarterback. Indianapolis is at 12.
I didn't pull up their information because I was like, I know you're a big Anthony Richardson guy, and I like him too, but
at some point the rope is getting short, right?
Yeah.
So, and then past that, it's like Seattle at 18. Does Seattle need to figure something out?
Yeah.
The Rams at 21 could develop a guy, so then you start getting into more of those like sit and wait situations. But in the top, 10 there, New Orleans, the Jets, Cleveland, Tennessee, that's 4 teams with an uncertainty at the position, whether in the immediate future or in the not so distant future, that are going to get left hanging probably in the draft, right? Based on the way it looks like some of this is going to go. We don't know if like Quinn Ewers is going to declare. We don't know about Milroe, but some of the guys we were really excited about, like Drew Aller, Garrett Nussmeier, like those guys go back to school. The wind gets taken out of the sails a little bit.
Right.
So, yeah, it's tough, man. Like, but the problem is, like, going back to Darnold, are any of those teams prying Darnold from Minnesota? That's what makes me feel like if Minnesota makes even a remotely competitive offer, it's going to be hard for him to leave.
Yeah.
Because, look, as fun as it would be for the headlines, Sam Darnold is not coming back to New York. Okay. And if he does, I'll break the Darnold jersey out. We'll do the whole dance again. But he's not coming back. Is Sam Darnold going to go play for, Tennessee? Like, I don't know. Like,
that's the team that I highlighted because they would be the furthest out, and so they would, they're not in the top 5 right now as far as Tankathon. So they would kind of be the one left out of, Shador or Cam, theoretically, you would think, unless they trade up. They have a good amount of cap space. I believe they have, $65 million in cap space. That's without any cuts or, there might be some money they can shed pretty quickly too. I could see them throwing a good amount at him. They got a young offensive-minded coach.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the only real spot there, unless, like, I don't know, so the coaching carousel shakes out a certain way where somebody who Sam has worked with goes to, Vegas, the Giants, one of those teams. But I got to think if you're drafting 1 or 2, you're picking a quarterback. But I don't know, man.
The other thing we should mention here is just before we started recording this, the Falcons have benched Kirk Cousins.
Yes.
And are starting Michael Penix. So, like, look, it would be crazy, and they just gave him the deal, but there's a world where they just decide to take their medicine and move on from Kirk. I think it's like a $65 million dead cap hit next year.
Yeah, I think it was like 90-something guaranteed, right?
Yeah. So, but hey, crazier things have happened. So, Kirk really hasn't been very good this year.
No.
But hence getting benched. But if his name enters into the market, somebody will latch on.
Yeah, he'll probably get that Russell Wilson deal where you just sign for the minimum because you're still getting 30-something million. Else. Yeah. I don't know. Knowing Kurt, he'll probably sign like another 2-year, like $75 million guaranteed. Yeah. He's been like a professional bag getter.
He's the king at that.
Yeah.
The king.
But yeah, I mean, that pretty much wraps it up. I mean, the draft not being the quarterbacks in this draft not being as strong as we thought it could be with some of these, underclassmen.
Yeah.
That's a bit of a bummer. So that's going to affect this quarterback market because just seeing a guy like Sam Darnold do what he did, and obviously this circumstance was great for him, but if they didn't have Sam Darnold, are the Vikings 12-2?
Yeah.
No, So I think teams are going to really look to take care of their backup quarterback.
Yeah, I think spot on. All right, well, there you have it, the 2025 quarterback free agent class. A little bit of everything, some upside, some veteran guys, some big-time question marks. We're going to keep rolling through all the position groups, not just offense either. We're going to get the defense too. We're going to hit everybody. So next time, I think we're going to take a look at the running backs hitting the market. Some big names out there, but playing the running back game in free agency can always be a little dicey. But hey, worked out for some teams this year.
Yeah,
so
certainly did.
Never really know. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment with your thought on these quarterbacks. If you're a fan of a team that needs a quarterback and you're in favor of and then old Sammy Darnold the bag, let us know how you feel about it, what team you're a fan of. And like I said, subscribe to the channel. If you're watching on YouTube, you're not going to want to miss the rest of this series. You can follow us on whatever podcast platform you're listening to. Make sure you're subscribed there. We'll have a little break. Got the holidays coming, so Merry Christmas if you
Merry
celebrate.
Christmas.
Happy holidays and Happy New Year. And we'll be back after the new year, rolling through the rest of the free agent class. So, yeah, we'll talk to you guys next year.
That was solid. Keep the drive alive. Don't forget to like and subscribe.